I have been sitting here thinking about this Panthers team, and honestly, the uncertainty surrounding our roster construction is starting to keep me up at night. Something just developed that could really shake up everything we thought we knew about our offense moving forward. It is fascinating because it touches on the high stakes of our recent draft investments and what we might be forced to do to get this ship turned around. The more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city below. Keep pounding. Let's get into it. Xavier Legette, our explosive first-round pick from 2024, is suddenly at the center of a massive trade rumor as we head into this crucial training camp. When we drafted him out of South Carolina, we envisioned a dominant playmaker who could finally anchor our passing attack for years to come. Unfortunately, the reality has been far different over his first 2 seasons, as he has failed to eclipse 500 receiving yards or secure 50 receptions in a single campaign. And honestly, this lack of production has left many of us questioning his future here. Now, here is the thing. With Tetairoa McMillan stepping into a significantly larger role within our offensive scheme, analysts are now labeling Legette as the odd man out and our most valuable trade chip before the deadline. Let's be real, seeing a former high draft pick struggle while other teams see success with guys like those coached by Ben Johnson in Chicago or Joe Brady in Buffalo is tough for us to swallow. That matters because the front office is reportedly weighing whether it is time to cut ties while his theoretical value still exists on the market. As Panthers fans, this news hits hard because we invested so much hope in his development, yet the cold business of the NFL is staring us in the face. Here is where it gets interesting, as we must decide if he is a core piece of our future or just an asset to be liquidated for better depth elsewhere. We have stayed loyal through the rebuilding years and watched as guys like Kellen Moore found success in New Orleans or Robert Saleh took over in Tennessee, so we just want this team to make the right move. Regardless of the outcome, we will always show up and keep pounding. As Panthers fans, we have to address the elephant in the room regarding Xavier Legette and his underwhelming start to his career. The backstory is defined by the high expectations placed on a first-round pick who arrived with immense raw athleticism, but lacked the refined route running necessary for immediate NFL success. Through 2 seasons, Legette has failed to cross the 500-yard or 50 reception marks, leaving us with a player who has shown flashes but never consistency. Here is where it gets interesting because the rapid ascension of Tetairoa McMillan has fundamentally shifted our offensive hierarchy. That matters because front offices across the league, like the one managed by Mike Borgonzi in Tennessee, look for exactly this type of buy low opportunity to bolster their rosters. Let's be real, his rookie contract remains attractive to teams looking for a cheap reclamation project, and his limited injury history suggests he is not broken, just underutilized. Historically, this reminds us of past failed development projects where we held on too long, watching value plummet while hoping for a breakout that never materialized. Now here's the thing. The front office is likely having intense internal debates about whether his physical ceiling justifies a roster spot over more reliable depth. They are balancing the sunk cost of that first-round selection against the cold reality of needing production right now to save their jobs. And honestly, if the team has already identified their future pillars, shipping Legette out while he still holds trade equity might be the only way to recoup assets before his value vanishes entirely. The coaching staff is clearly looking for guys who can execute in high-pressure systems like the ones currently run by guys like Ben Johnson in Chicago or Kellen Moore in New Orleans. The future of Xavier Legette has reached a boiling point for us as Panthers fans, and honestly, we have to look at the cold reality of his stagnant development. That matters because if Tetairoa McMillan is ready to explode into a primary target, holding on to a former first-round pick who cannot crack the starting rotation is a luxury this team simply cannot afford. Here is where it gets interesting regarding our roster construction, as moving Legette would clear valuable cap space while simultaneously consolidating our receiving core around a high-upside core. Let's be real, his trade value is likely at its peak right now before another mediocre campaign tanks his market entirely. This strategic shift directly impacts our upcoming schedule, especially when we face Kellen Moore's aggressive Saints secondary or attempt to exploit the gaps in Robert Saleh's complex defense during our clashes with the Titans and GM Mike Borgonzi. If we trade Legette for draft capital, we gain the flexibility to address defensive holes exposed by league-wide coaching shifts, such as Ben Johnson's potent Bears or the disciplined squads led by Mike Vrabel and Joe Brady. Now, here's the thing. Standing pat while Legette struggles could cost us crucial division wins that define our postseason trajectory. If our offense cannot find consistent production beyond McMillan, our chances of leapfrogging the Saints in the NFC South diminish rapidly. By offloading him now, we force the front office to commit to a clearer identity, potentially turning a roster liability into a functional building block for our long-term goals. We need decisive action to ensure this team stays competitive in a crowded conference, so it is time to move on and trust the process. With training camp approaching fast, the clock is ticking for the front office to make a move that keeps our playoff dreams alive and helps us continue to keep pounding. On one side, trading Xavier Legette makes logical sense, because the emergence of Tedairoa McMillan has rendered Legette a luxury we can no longer afford to carry. With his production failing to break the 500-yard barrier, his value is essentially at its peak before it plummets further. By moving him now, we could recoup significant draft capital to patch other roster holes, while our front office looks to capitalize on his lingering athletic upside. But on the other side, the risk of giving up on a first-round talent too soon is haunting. We have seen players bloom late in different schemes, and if he finds his rhythm elsewhere, this team looks foolish for shipping him out for pennies on the dollar. Analysts across the league are already buzzing about his potential availability, with front offices in places like Tennessee, where GM Mike Borgonzi is looking to surround his core with speed, keeping a close eye on our situation. Let's be real, other teams are hoping we grow impatient. Here is where it gets interesting because our coaching staff needs to decide if they want to bet on his development or trust the depth chart as it stands today. That matters because a mistake here could impact our passing game for years. And honestly, my real take here is that we should pull the trigger on a trade immediately. Personally, I think his ceiling in Carolina has evaporated, and holding on to him is just sunk cost fallacy at this point. We need to maximize our assets while the rest of the league still views him as a prospect rather than a bust. It is a tough pill to swallow for a guy we invested so much in, but business is business in this league. Keep pounding. The future of this franchise hinges on our ability to distinguish between sunk costs and actual building blocks as we navigate a league landscape now headlined by heavyweights like Ben Johnson in Chicago or Robert Saleh in Tennessee. And honestly, the Xavier Legette situation is the ultimate litmus test for our front office strategy over these next few seasons. We have watched other organizations like the Bills and Saints pivot quickly under new leadership, and if we are serious about competing, we must decide if Legette is a foundational piece or merely a placeholder. Let's be real, his inability to eclipse 500 yards or 50 catches is a major red flag given his first-round pedigree. Here is where it gets interesting because with Tedairoa McMillan primed to explode, we finally have the luxury of options. That matters because holding on to underperforming assets while their trade value plummets is how rebuilds stall out indefinitely. As Panthers fans, you should feel a sense of urgency rather than comfort heading into this training camp. We need production, not potential, and being aggressive in the market is how championship teams are forged in this modern era. Now here is the thing, should we trust the development staff to finally unlock his skill set, or is it simply time to cut our losses and capitalize on what remains of his market value before he becomes an afterthought? If you were in the general manager chair today, would you trade Xavier Legette for a mid-round pick or keep him for one final prove-it year in our scheme? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Keep pounding! I'll see you in the next one.